So here's the plan for today. You have an equation. You're going to make a table, and then you're going to come over to the back and you're going to graph it. All right. We're going to do number 1 and number 7 together, and then you're going to do the rest of them. So notice some of them have all of the x values filled in, and then other ones don't. It's basically like the ones with the x values filled in is these are the x values that will give you whole numbers for the output or the y values. We talked about input and output yesterday, domain and range. The domain was like the x values and the input. The range was the output or the y values. So we are going to figure out the y values today. If you are filling in this side, it essentially means that like it doesn't really matter. Basically just pick numbers where they will be on the graph, the 10 by 10 graph. Okay, so what is this going to look like? We've got different types of graphs here. We have absolute value, we have quadratic, we just have linear, we have cubic, rational, just different types. But all you're going to do is you're going to take a number, you're going to plug it in for x, and then you're going to solve that side, and then that's what your y value or your output is. So like for this one, if 0 is our x value, we are going to plug 0 in. So you don't really need a calculator for this. You should be able to just do this in your head. We are going to plug 0 in. The absolute value of 0, which all the absolute value does is it takes off the negative sign. So if it's like negative 2, it would turn it into 2. If it's a positive 2, it would remain as positive 2. But 0 is that x value. We plug it in. So 0 minus 4 is negative 4. Okay. And then what I did for these, which it doesn't really matter, but I just put some random numbers, went to negative 4 and negative 6, and then went up 4 and 6. And you will, then what you're going to do is you're going to take these points, you're going to plot them on the other side, and then you're going to connect the points, and you'll end up with a graph. So negative 4 in the absolute value form is the absolute value of negative 4 is just 4. Then 4 minus 4 is 0. So this is where it crosses the x-axis right here. Crosses at negative 4. And then negative 6, when we plug that in, the absolute value of negative 6 is a positive 6. And then 6 minus 4 is 2. And then something that you'll notice over here, that if you have the same number as negative, that you have as negative as a positive, it ends up being the same output. So like this is going to be 0 because the absolute value of 4 is still 4. And then 4 minus 4 is 0. The absolute value of 6 is 6. 6 minus 4 is 2. So that's what it ends up looking like, and we're going to turn to the next page and we're going to graph those. Alright, so negative 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2. Negative 4, 0, 0 is negative 4, and then 4 is 0, 6 is 2, and then I am going to take my ID and use it to draw these lines. And that is what the absolute value graph looks like. And since it's like the normal absolute value graph would look like the exact same thing, it just would be moved up. So since it's absolute value of x minus 4, it moves the entire graph down by 4. Alright, so this is 1 over x plus 1. And so same idea here, but we're given all of the points that we need. So 1 over x plus 1, we are going to take our x value, so I'm just going to start with 0. So 1 over 0 plus 1 is just 1 over 1, so it's that. And then we're going to let's plug negative 2 in. So 1 over negative 2 plus 1. And if you guys need to write it out here, you can. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1, so it's negative 1 over 1 or negative 1. And that's what you end up getting, because -2 plus 1 is a -1. So if the bottom one's negative and the top one's not, then that means the whole thing is negative. Okay? So I'm going to pause my screen, and I want you guys to see if we can figure out the rest of these. Okay.
Yeah, I'll just take a whole. I'll turn it up.
All right. So this is what ends up happening. You get -1/2 for -3. You get 1/2 for 1, and you get 1/3 for 2. And the reason I want to show you this graph is because there's an asymptote, and so it doesn't actually connect, and it's kind of weird. So going to number 7, we have 0 and 1. And then we also have 1 and 1/2. And it gets closer to that x value, right, or that x-axis. And then we have -3, -1/2. We have -2, -1. All right, so this graph looks really weird because there's an asymptote both at the x-axis right here, where the line doesn't touch the x-axis, and there's an asymptote at -1. So it's gonna, it's gonna go like, sort of like this. And like that is what it's gonna look like.